The Niagara Falls is a complex of waterfalls located on the Niagara River. This place captivates not only with its beauty, grandeur, and power, but also with the secrets hidden in the endless stream of churning waters. In this video, I have gathered the most mystical stories associated with this magnificent natural wonder. Enjoy watching. With the onset of darkness, Niagara Falls becomes fantastically beautiful, all thanks to the illumination. Tourists who have admired the falls at night enthusiastically claim that they have never seen anything more beautiful in their lives. The first night lighting of the falls was installed in 1860, in honor of the visit of the Prince of Wales. At that time, the lighting system included over 200 different lights, placed along the shore on both the American and Canadian sides. The lights were lit simultaneously and alternately, creating grand visual effects. Over time, the lighting system has continually changed. During World War II, for obvious reasons, the lighting was often turned off. Since 1974 to the present day, the illumination of the falls consists of 21 xenon spotlights with a power of 4 kilowatts, changing colors through gel sheets. This concept not only highlighted the magnificence of the falls, but also allowed people to admire them even at night. You might be surprised, but the first person who managed to cross the waterfall inside a barrel was a woman of respectable age. Her name was Annie Taylor, and she was 63 years old at the time of the descent. Annie Taylor was in dire need of money. Therefore, she decided on an adventure. The woman claimed that she would descend the current of the falls and survive. Most investors did not want to hear about such an idea, so Annie spent a long time looking for someone who could finance her idea. Eventually, of course, she found one. A custom barrel was constructed for her, made of oak and iron parts. Inside this device was a mattress that was supposed to soften the impact. On October 24th, 1901, on her birthday, Annie climbed into the barrel. Her friends screwed the lid on and pumped air inside with a bicycle pump. After that, they tightly closed the hole for the hose with a cork. The barrel was launched into the water on the American side. The current carried it to the Canadian part, to the Horseshoe Falls. There, rescuers were already waiting for Annie. The entire journey of the brave woman took 20 minutes, but even this time was enough for Annie for the rest of her life. Later, she admitted that she would rather climb into a cannon and die than jump in such a barrel into the waterfall again. In the late 1960s, American scientists were concerned about the large number of landslides and rockfalls. These natural phenomena threatened to destroy the American Falls, so they decided to save this natural landmark with their own hands. In June 1969, workers managed to redirect the Niagara River flow towards the Horseshoe Falls. This was done to dry up the American Falls and study its bed. For this purpose, a dam was built with 27,000 tons of rocks. To deliver such a volume of boulders, massive trucks made 1,200 trips. The exposed bed attracted high interest from tourists and locals because it revealed a countless number of coins. Some estimates suggest there were over 1 million coins. I think everyone knows about the tradition of throwing a coin for good luck, to return to the place where it was thrown. All these coins, found at the bottom of the waterfall, were thrown into the water by people resting here in the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries. Therefore, such a large number of coins is not surprising at all. According to Canadians, Drummond Hill Cemetery is the richest in the number of ghosts. This place is inhabited by a vast number of spirits, which materialize in various forms, but most often as glowing spheres. You may say this is just superstition, but Canadians have a very logical explanation for their belief. Drummond Hill Cemetery is now a National Heritage Site. In 1814, the Battle of Lundy's Lane took place here. Additionally, it is the burial site of Laura Secord, a Canadian heroine of the War of 1812. During the battles, a huge number of soldiers died, and the land became literally soaked in blood. Their unrested souls have forever remained trapped on the battlefield. It is for this reason that Canadians often witness paranormal phenomena occurring in the cemetery. Local residents report that at night, sounds of gunshots and explosions, as well as people's screams, can be heard coming from Drummond Hill. Some people claim to have seen the ghosts of soldiers and a lone woman walking towards the hill where Laura Seckard is buried. Glen View Mansion, also known as the Pink Palace, is located in Ontario. The mansion was built in 1865 by John Drew. It once had stables, a tennis court, gardens, and vineyards, and was a true paradise for its owners. But now it is shrouded in mystery. Creepy stories about the mansion began to circulate among local residents after a supposed double murder occurred on its grounds. According to legend, in the late 19th century, during one of the parties, a married couple was waiting for a carriage. At that time, a criminal attacked them and stabbed them to death, taking all their jewels and money. Since then, every year, locals have seen the ghost of a carriage drawn by horses, followed by bloody trails. Today, people no longer see this ghost, but still note some paranormal phenomena occurring in the mansion. Sometimes red stains resembling blood appear on the driveway. No matter how many times they are washed away, they reappear. Moreover, lights sometimes turn on in the windows, and music from past centuries can be heard coming from the mansion. All would be well, but no one has lived in the mansion for a long time. Red Coach Inn is one of the most popular hotels in Niagara Falls, located in a picturesque spot just 500 meters from the waterfall. The hotel, with its facade in the style of English Tudors, was built in 1923. Since then, Red Coach Inn has captivated its visitors with stunning views from the windows and a warm atmosphere. It seems like a perfect place for relaxation, but not everything is so simple. Locals say that two ghosts haunt its walls. The first is the ghost of a young bride named Emily. In 1925, she and her newlywed husband stayed in the Victoria Suite. When they were alone, the guy accused her of infidelity. During their argument, he attacked her and beat her to death. Later, hotel guests reported seeing Emily's ghost wandering through the restaurant and other rooms. 2 years later, during a fire in the hotel's barn, a 4-year-old child died. Now people often hear a child's cry calling for help from a mother. Francis Abbott, also known as the Niagara Hermit, was born in the early 19th century in Canada. Little is known about his life, particularly that after the age of 40, he chose to live in solitude. For this, he settled in one of the caves near Niagara Falls. Despite such a desperate act, Francis was not insane. According to him, he was simply tired of the hustle and bustle of the city. Local residents often visited the man to bring food and talk to him. It should be noted that Francis was an educated man and spoke several languages. Although he chose to become a hermit, he never hindered communication with other people, quite the opposite. Francis spent all his free time reading books, writing stories, and playing the violin. And of course, he enjoyed his solitude amidst picturesque nature. Francis lived this life for about 9 years, and one day, one of the locals found him dead in the cave. The cause of the hermit's death was undetermined and remains unknown to this day, as does his biography. Stephen Peer was born in 1840 in the Canadian town of Stamford. At the age of 19, he was amazed by how effortlessly Charles Blondin walked on a thin rope over the rapid waters of Niagara Falls. The young man decided that he too would become a tightrope walker and one day perform a similar trick. Peer began years of training to one day fulfill his dream. On June 22, 1887, near Niagara Falls, a crowd of spectators gathered. They all came to watch Peer perform his most dangerous trick. That day, the tightrope walker managed to cross Niagara on a rope from the current Whirlpool Bridge to the Central Bridge of Pennsylvania and back. This trick caused a sensation, as Peer's rope was much thinner than Blondin's. Peer celebrated his successful crossing for a long time. Such fame went to his head, and he decided to repeat his success. However, that evening he was heavily drunk and unfortunately fell from the rope and perished. Niagara Falls, located between the American state of New York and the Canadian province of Ontario, is rich in various legends, including those about ghosts. According to one legend, the spirit of a monk resides in Clet Hall, which is now part of Niagara University. Clet Hall was built in 1860. At that time, it was a monastery. In 1864, one of the monks, for unknown reasons, decided to take his own life. He jumped from the top floor and died on impact. It is also known that after this incident, a fire occurred in Clet Hall, during which a student perished. More than a century has passed since then, but university students still notice strange phenomena. For example, lights often turn on in the corridors of Clet Hall, and doors open by themselves. Students speak of hearing terrible screams, prayers, and the sound of smoldering wood. Some claim to have seen the ghost of an elderly man in church attire. Today, Clet Hall serves as a dormitory for university students. Therefore, the university administration decided to install cameras to determine the cause of these occurrences. However, this led to no conclusion, and everyone had to simply accept the presence of a ghost in Clet Hall. If you think that life in the 19th century was very boring, and that there were no true extremists among the people of that era willing to commit a crazy act, you are mistaken. Niagara Falls attracts not only with its beauty, but also with its power. Even among modern people, few would dare to descend its current. In fact, it is tantamount to suicide. However, at the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century, descending the current of the falls became a real challenge for daredevils. The first person to jump from the Horseshoe Falls was Sam Patch, who called himself Yankee Leaper. Amazingly, he survived the jump. This act inspired several more people to jump. However, they were not as lucky as Sam, and of course, they perished. The fatalities did not stop people from trying to conquer the element. Therefore, special devices were invented that allowed softening the impact and not drowning in water. Among them were wooden barrels, rubber balls, and capsules. There were many daredevils willing to descend the current of the falls inside such constructions, and most of them managed to survive. At that time, such an extreme adventure became a sensation, although it must be said that even now, such acts continue to shock. At the end of July 2019, residents around Lake Ontario witnessed an unusual event for the area, the fall of a meteorite. According to Peter Brown, a professor at the Canadian Research Faculty of Physics and Astronomy, a meteorite about 30 centimeters in diameter appeared in the sky over Ontario at 6:44 a.m. The brightness of the fireball created by the meteorite was comparable to the brightness of the moon. At the end of its flight, several bright flashes occurred. Presumably, these were fragments into which the meteorite had split. Each of these fragments is valuable to scientists. Therefore, Brown and his team launched a large-scale search operation to find such fragments. The professor explained that meteorite fragments allow scientists to learn a lot of new and useful information for further space research, so he called on local residents to help him. People responded positively to this request and also began to search for fragments. It should be said that this is not so easy. The found fragments were so small that the weight of some of them did not exceed 1 gram. Charles Stevens, a barber from England, decided to repeat the feats of daredevils who descended the Niagara Falls current in barrels. Unfortunately, he was not as lucky as others had been. Stevens had long been interested in extreme sports. He performed deep dives from great heights and had parachuted numerous times. He even earned the nickname the Demonic Barber of Bristol for these pursuits. In the summer of 1920, Stevens left his 11 children with his wife and came to Canada to commit what would be the craziest act of his life. At that time, he was 53 years old. His vast experience as an extremist was behind him. I think that's why Stevens decided on his descent. Interestingly, it was his persistence that played a cruel joke on him. He chose Russian oak to construct his barrel. Even Bobby Leach, who had also crossed the waterfall in a barrel, tried to dissuade him from this idea, arguing that the barrel would not withstand the experiment. But Stephen stood his ground. Inside the descent capsule, he was handcuffed to the barrel's lid, and his feet were chained to an anvil to maintain stability. The Daredevil didn't flip over, but when he hit the water's surface, the anvil pierced the bottom of the barrel, and the injured Stevens sank with it to the bottom. Only a shattered barrel with the barber's severed hand remained on the surface. Stevens's body was never found. In the northwestern part of Niagara Falls in Ontario, there is a tunnel that keeps locals in fear. This place is associated with a very creepy legend. The story tells that about a century ago, in a house near the railway under which the tunnel runs, a fire broke out. In this house lived a family of farmers. Unfortunately, they all were trapped, except for a young girl. She managed to escape through a window. Trying to find salvation, she ran into the tunnel but could not extinguish her burning clothes and also burned to death. Some believe that the fire was set by a young man in love with the girl, while others say that her father, who had gone mad, was to blame. Either way, since then, locals have heard the girls crying and screaming from the tunnel. Moreover, some people say that if you light a match inside the tunnel, a strong wind will rise and the fire will go out. To test this legend, many daredevils from around the world have visited the tunnel. Some of them were disappointed in this place and say that nothing mystical happens there. Others, on the contrary, claimed that strange things really happen inside the tunnel. Interestingly, this story is partly true, as at the beginning of the 20th century, a fire did indeed occur in one of the nearby houses, killing an entire family. In 2020, a couple vacationing near the Horseshoe Falls noticed a young deer trapped on a small isolated island in the middle of the raging river. Concerned for the animal's life, they decided to immediately report the incident to the relevant authorities. However, both the Niagara Parks Police and the Provincial Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry declined to organize a rescue operation. Don't be quick to accuse the authorities of inhumanity. It turns out that local deer often choose such plots of land to inhabit. On these islands, they have no competitors for food. Moreover, they need not fear forest predators, simply because there aren't any there. Niagara Falls is one of the most beautiful places on our planet. Tourists from all over the world come here to admire these landscapes. However, there is a very creepy cave located on its territory, which is associated with a local legend. According to it, the Great Spirit gifted these lands to the Native Americans, but when they began to fight amongst themselves, the mountain gods became angry and brought down stones on the tribe. At that time, a cave formed in the rock, where the angered Great Spirit hid. Since then, he lost his kindness to people and killed everyone who entered the cave. This legend arose in 1763 when British soldiers came to these lands. The local Seneca tribe warned that anyone who passed through this cave would die. The British did not listen to the Native Americans, resulting in the death of about 500 soldiers whose bodies were thrown into Niagara Falls. Now the cave is painted with graffiti left by daredevils. Apparently, tourists demonstrate that for them, this story is nothing more than a myth. But local residents continue to believe in the mystique associated with this place. According to them, screams of the evil spirit are often heard from the cave. In Niagara Falls, there is an unusual club called Echo. This place is associated with many mystical stories, but despite this, locals and tourists love to spend their free time here. Echo Club is located in a building constructed in 1885. Previously, this building was a mansion of a wealthy man, Thomas Welch. Now, the club offers visitors a restaurant, bar, theater, and a tour program around the historic mansion. All this sounds attractive, but most tourists visit Echo to witness paranormal phenomena. Local residents and club employees have long told of strange events occurring inside this building. According to them, an evil spirit, possibly the spirit of its owner, lives inside the mansion. As darkness falls, people in the club begin to hear a strange creaking, similar to a scream. There have been cases where doors began to open and close by themselves, and it seemed as if someone was smashing dishes in the kitchen. Moreover, some witnesses have seen a real ghost, resembling a girl in a long white dress. So if you ever find yourself in Niagara Falls, be sure to visit this unusual club. Niagara Falls is undoubtedly one of the most popular tourist destinations on the planet. For centuries, people have come here to admire the beauty of the local landscapes, and of course, they sometimes inadvertently lose their belongings. Nowadays, many lost items are found in the area of the falls. These include coins, jewelry, and many other small trinkets. Whom they belong to will never be known. Sometimes ancient artifacts, treasures from past centuries, and even sunken ships are found at the bottom of Niagara. The record number of finds was discovered in 1969. That year, scientists were concerned about a series of collapses and landslides in the area of the American Falls. They believed that such a number of rock falls could destroy the waterfall, and therefore decided to drain it to study the geological composition and prevent further erosion. For this purpose, the flow of Niagara was redirected to the Horseshoe Falls. This was the first and only time when the turbulent waterfall turned into a small stream. It was then, while the scientists were conducting their research, that locals roamed the dried-up riverbed, collecting various coins and trinkets that had been hidden under water for several decades. Niagara Falls is undoubtedly a natural wonder, admired by generations for its majesty and beauty. But it's important to remember that this place is very dangerous. At the thresholds above Niagara Falls, the river's current reaches 40 kilometers per h, and the bottom is filled with sharp rocks honed by the churning water. Thus, any living creature that falls into the river is likely to face death. Throughout history, thousands of people have died in the waters of Niagara Falls. Among them were people who got too close to the edge of the falls and fell into the water. There were also daredevils who decided to challenge nature. And of course, among the dead were suicides and victims of criminals. In 1969, during the dewatering of the American Falls, the remains of 2 deceased were found. More recently, divers accidentally discovered 2 more decapitated bodies. Of course, many more people have perished here, but the rapid current of Niagara reduces the chances of finding a body to almost zero. I previously mentioned that in 1969, scientists drained the American side of Niagara Falls. During this investigation, they made a gruesome discovery: mutilated human remains. Police arrived at the scene and began their investigation. The 2 deceased had nothing left but their torsos. This indicated that they were killed, most likely by the same criminal or a criminal group. Unfortunately, it was impossible to identify the victims, nor to find any clues. These murders remain unsolved, and it's unlikely that the police will be able to find those responsible. On August 6, 1918, 2 sailors, Gustav Lofberg and Frank Harris, were aboard a barge. Suddenly, the vessel broke free from the dock and was carried away by the strong current of the Niagara. The sailors immediately realized the danger and opened the Kingstons to fill the hold with water. This made the barge heavier, and they managed to turn it towards the rocks. For 24 hours, the men waited for help and hoped for a miracle. Finally, with the help of ropes thrown from the shore, they managed to escape the trap. However, the vessel was left in the same place. For over 100 years, this barge remained immobile and became a local landmark. However, at the end of October 2018, during a severe storm, the scow shifted and moved downstream about 50 meters. Now the vessel is again in a stationary position, but the Niagara Safety Service warns that during the next storm, the barge may start moving again. It is currently located 1.5 kilometers from the Horseshoe Falls. The likelihood that the waves will drag the barge this distance is very high, so the vessel is under close observation. Niagara Falls is not the highest waterfall in the world, but it boasts a rapid current. Therefore, a person caught in the water at this place is almost always doomed to death. Despite this, miracles happen, and 7-year-old Roger Woodward became one of those lucky ones who managed to survive in the waters of Niagara Falls. In July 1960, a family friend of the Woodwards decided to take Roger for a walk along the Niagara River. Along with Roger, his 17-year-old sister Deanne and his 7-year-old friend James Honeycutt embarked on a small journey. The kids decided to get into a boat, but at some point it capsized and they ended up in the water. Deanne was luckier than the others, and bystanders John Hayes and John R. Quattrochi managed to pull her to shore, while the two boys were immediately trapped in the fast current. The water flowed so fast that within minutes they were near the waterfall. Sharp rocks in this area of the river proved fatal for James. It's unknown how Roger managed to survive after falling from the waterfall. A consensus was reached in his family, never to mention this story again. Therefore, no one tried to ask questions to the little traumatized boy. And that's all from me. If you liked this video, don't forget to rate it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Goodbye.